How do you handle stress? This is a question that they occasionally ask in job interviews. And it's another one of those trick questions. It's a trap style question because they're asking you about something negative. And this is an attempt to get the dirt on you. And although this isn't one of the standard job interview questions that are super common, like tell me about yourself, or what are your weaknesses, or why should we hire you? This is a question that we do often see. People ask this question. Now, I want to make it clear, this is not a behavioral-based question, okay? Sometimes they will ask you behavioral-based questions. That's very common in job interviews, especially these days, where usually the question is phrased something similar to, tell me about a time, and then they fill in the blank. So tell me about a time you handled stress. Tell me about a time you failed. Tell me about a time you had a conflict with your boss. Those are behavioral interview questions. And they can ask a behavioral question about stress. They could say, tell me about a time you had to handle stress, or you got stressed. How did you handle it? Or what did you do? Okay, this is not that question. This is not a behavioral question. This question is, how do you handle stress? So it's not a behavioral question. You're not answering with a story. You're answering with, what is your approach to handling stress in general? Okay, so it's kind of a different question to the behavioral question. Okay, and that's why we're talking about this specifically today, because this does stump a lot of people. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, a great answer to this question is simply to say, I handle it very well. Just like that. And then I shut up. And that's what you should do too. Because this question is a trap. You see, in order to answer this question properly, if you're not prepared for it, you're probably going to go into talking about how you get stressed, several occasions where you've been stressed, and that sort of thing. You're going to be giving examples of being stressed. And the more you talk about it, the more you dig your grave, because you're going to be giving the interviewer a bad first impression of you. They're going to be thinking, wow, this person gets stressed a lot. Just listen to all the things they've had to do to mitigate stress. Just listen to all the examples they're giving me of them being stressed in the past. Now, if we hire this person, it seems like they're the type of person that's going to be stressed a lot. And is that really what we're looking for? No, it isn't. We're looking for the candidate that can take this job in their stride, and they're not going to be overly stressed doing this job. If there is any stress, they're going to be able to handle it without much fuss. It's not going to be an issue, right? So the more you talk in giving an answer to this, the worse it is for you. So the priority is to get off this question very quickly and get on to the next question, where you can presumably talk about answering questions like, what are your strengths and why should we hire you? That's what you're in the job interview to do, to give them reasons why they should hire you, and talk all about how awesome you are and how you can do all these different things and how you're great to deal with. That's what you want to spend your time on in the job interview. Not talking about all the times you've been stressed and what you've had to do to deal with it. That's not the best use of your time. So you want to give them a short answer to this question that gives them what they need, but allows them to move on quickly to the next question. So once again, that's why the way I would answer this question is, if somebody says to me, tell me, how do you handle stress? I would say, oh, I handle it actually quite well. And then I stop talking. Now, if that feels kind of awkward and weird and you really feel you must say something else, you could say something like, well, most jobs involve a certain amount of stress, but it's never been a problem for me in the past. And then you shut up. You see how that works? You don't extend this into a conversation. You don't give multiple examples. That's how you do it. You could even say something like, usually I go for my evening workout and that takes care of the stress. Now, I don't know if I would be able to get away with saying that, because everyone can believe that I have a very intense evening workout that I religiously stick to. But if you can say something like that without it being a total lie, then I highly recommend that you do that. Okay, and that's how we handle this question. It's all about not giving a bad first impression, not leading them to believe that you have issues to do with anything stress related, anything like that. The more you talk, the worse it gets. Okay. The reason why I recommend that you shut up is because you want a certain amount of social pressure to get the interviewer to just move on. 90% of the time, they'll just move on to the next question and you pass. You pass the question. And that's how we handle that. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If you do want to go deeper, check out my Get Hired course. That's where all my advice is and all the theory behind everything. David is here. David says, if you say, like, I handle it very well, they may ask for more elaboration. Yeah, maybe they do. But the thing is, you do what I just said. So they first ask you, how do you handle stress? And you say, oh, I handle it very well. Now, most of the time they'll move on. Now, if they ask you for elaboration, say, could you talk more about that or give me an example? You say, well, most jobs have a certain amount of stress, but for me, it's never really been a problem. And then you shut up. And then they would have to keep going to push you for more. So you're not being overly evasive. There's the comment also about the workout, what have you done in the past to mitigate stress? And remember, we're getting onto a different question now. They're asking you more of a behavioral question about, tell me about a time you handled stress, which is a different question. But like I said, the other thing you have in your back pocket is saying, well, usually I just go for my evening workout and that takes care of the stress. Right? So usually, it's very exotic and rare for them to really keep pushing on this question. That usually serves your purpose. You pass the question, they move on to something more constructive that isn't an ambush, and you're good. So that's usually how it goes. Now, if you do get asked the behavioral question, tell me about a time you handled stress, that's a completely different thing. You would be preparing for that the way you prepare for all the possible behavior questions you could encounter. And that's a totally different subject for another live stream. But usually they don't turn one into the other. They ask a specific question. In the case of recruiters, a lot of times it's written on their sheet what to ask. And they go off that. So it'll be one or the other. It'll be the general question about stress or it'll be the behavioral question. Hopefully that makes sense.